Hello everybody and welcome. In this video we're going to have a look at the ways that you can download Blender on Blender's website. Now in the next video we'll also have a look at how to do it on Steam, but we're going to concentrate just on the Blender website at the moment. Now there's a great big download button here, Blender 2.91. If I go ahead and click on that, this is the version that I'll be starting with, but as the course progresses I will be upgrading as we go. In fact, I believe 2.92 has just entered beta, so I will be playing with that in the background and using it later on in the course for sure. So we can go ahead, just click Blender, download it, and it will take us to You're Breathtaking. And thank you for joining the Blender community as a whole. You can see I've already downloaded it in the past here, but it's downloading to the computer. I can just click on that and install it. And you'll follow a similar pattern depending on what operating system you're on. If you need a bit of extra help, if you're running Mac or Linux, give us a shout in the questions and answers, or just in the discussions, come over to the Discord and just ask away. I'd be happy to help you out with that. But what happens if you don't want Blender 2.91? By the way, once that's downloaded, you can just click on it and install it like any other program you would on your computer. But what about the other versions of Blender? Well, if we have a look under the download tab here, we've got Blender 2.83 LTS. What's this? Well, it's a long-term support. If we click on it and scroll down, we can see here that Blender 2.83 LTS was released at the beginning of 2020, and they're going to support it all the way through to the beginning of 2022. Why is this important? Well, if you're embarking on a long-term project and you don't want things to break and you want the most stable form of Blender you can get, this is it. Also, there are things called add-ons which extend Blender's functionality, and having a long-term support version means that the add-ons themselves can be much more stable and indeed might not work in later versions. So it's one way, if you're working on a large project and you've got lots of add-ons, it's one way of keeping things going really well. And I know people that are still using Blender 2.7 in certain circumstances because they've got an add-on that was never updated. Of course, they're probably doing stuff in the later versions as well, because you can run more than one version of Blender on your computer at any one time. Now, we're not going to delve into a lot of detail on that because you're going to be a pretty advanced user by that point and you'll be able to do that. And if that is something you want to tinker with, just give us a shout. We'd be happy to help with that. Right, so that's Blender 2.83 long term. How do we download it? Well, there are a couple of options. You can get it from the Windows Store. You can go ahead, again, on Steam here, and that applies to Windows, Mac OS, and Linux if you've got Steam installed on those platforms. And you can snap install it on Linux as well if you need to. Now, if we scroll down a little further, we've got the releases, and if we carry on scrolling, they actually go back right to the very beginning of the release, so just 2.83. And you can see here, on a Windows platform certainly, we've got Windows 64 MSI. That's the standard installer that will install it on your computer as a normal program. And there's a similar DMG image file and Linux tar file above those. Now, this last one here is zip file. Now, this is really interesting. If you download this zip file and then extract it, you can run Blender from the folder that you've created, which is really useful for trying out different versions. Perhaps you want to try out the latest version or have an older version on your computer. You can actually run it from the zip file and it's brilliant. It just runs straight away from it. And you could even install it on a memory stick, for instance, and then you have a portable version of Blender that you can take around with you. But that's outside the scope of this lesson. Okay, final one then. We're going to go back to the download page, so blender.org/download. And you can see here, we're back to where we were. If we scroll all the way down, you can see here that we've got Go Experimental, and you can either click the rocket or the download button here, and it takes us, here we go. So I'm recording this today, January 13th, and Blender 2.92 beta has become available, and 2.93 alpha is available. I'm really excited. I'm going to be trying these things out. I encourage you to try them out, but understanding that Blender will be unstable. There'll be features that aren't working properly. Your add-ons probably won't work properly. There's so much that can go wrong with, well, not necessarily beta ones, but definitely alpha ones, and things can change as well. So I'm always going to be recording the course in whatever the latest version is on the main page that we first dropped on. But as soon as Blender 2.92 is out of beta, I'll be trying it in the background. We will switch to it in the course in a later section. And to be honest, the differences that you're going to experience as a beginner between 2.91, 2.92, and 2.93, we're probably not going to see those differences until much later in the course anyway. So don't worry if you have the absolute latest version, because we don't really want you to have an unstable experience either. Okay, so that about wraps up this lecture. I would encourage you at the moment to go to the download page at blender.org and download Blender 2.9, whatever it happens to be in that box actually, because in a couple of weeks' time that's bound to say 2.92. So they will change over time. Just click whatever's there for the up-to-date version that you know is going to be reasonably stable to use, unless you need that long-term support version. Okay, that's it for this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one.